Hi, and welcome back to a podcast above a convenience store, Talking Twin Peaks. I am Joe Fremming from the Joe Down, and with me is Paul Muad'Dib from Cast That Movie. How you doing, Paul?
I am doing well. I am so excited to talk Twin Peaks with you again.
Yeah, I am excited too, considering we are now all living like Harold Smith.
I'm going to start, you know what? Just because you said that, I'm going to start figuring out how to grow. I'm going to order some flowers. I'm going to start growing some orchids. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Are you going to befriend a high school girl and keep her secret diary?
I'm not looking to go to jail again. But, but yes, I will.
All right. Well, last week we ended with episode 3, which is the money shot episode. This is where we finally, well, not finally, we didn't even know it existed at the time, but in hindsight, it's the Black Lodge, the Red Room, Cooper's dream, and it's the show's going full steam ahead after that because everybody's like, "What the fuck did we just see?" Now we're going into episode 4. Technically episode 3 because we can't have nice things.
We're not allowed thanks to licensing rights.
Yes. Rest in Pain, the episode titles. These titles, I believe, were given to the show once they were put out on like DVD just because they needed a chapter name or whatever. But yeah, we'll be doing episodes 3, 4, and 5, or 3 and 4, based on whatever. Rest in Pain and The One-Armed Man. Now,
yes. Now, there is, we talked about we come off the money episode and we get into these 2 episodes, and these 2 episodes were written by Harley Peyton and Robert Ingalls. Respectively, episode 3-4 being Harley, episode 4-5 being Robert. They were big time writers in that second season, and this shows in this episode. This to me, at least coming in, I still love it. Don't get me wrong, like I love this season. But looking at it critically, of breaking it down for these podcasts, and only because I'm really been limiting myself in watching Twin Peaks now to only the episodes that we're going to be watching for our podcast. It's just the way I've been watching it this time. Normally I watch it in a succession. And isolating these 2 episodes by themselves, there's a lot of filler.
Yeah, these are heavy on B, C, D, E, F plots. Like, they're not bad. Here's the thing, like when I'm just sitting back and watching this first season, it's enjoyable. Like these just come up. It's part of the story, it's part of the show. But when we're breaking it down to discuss Twin Peaks by episode, it's when we start kind of seeing, well, this is a lot of filler, and it's probably by design, just because we get this mysterious dream, and then Lynch and Frost being Lynch and Frost, we're probably like, now let's throw a bunch of bullshit at these people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely, because again, knowing what we know, we were never supposed to find out who killed Laura Palmer, and so I feel like this is like like they gave you the hook in the first couple episodes, and then this is like the simmer down period, and you see, even looking at the return, kind of that vibe is there where there's these giant peaks, and then you have the lulls, and I think Lynch is very good at toying with people, and I think this is kind of his thing, because going into the episodes that come in afterwards, you hit those peaks again of, whoa, wait a minute, this is awesome, and then you get that lull. It's toying with you. I think that's really what these 2 episodes are.
Yeah, and I should also add the person, Robert. I don't know exactly the story of how, but he ended up. Mark Frost did not want to do Fire Walk with Me. There was a lot of bad blood between everybody involved with Twin Peaks. Lynch wanted to do the movie. Frost said, okay, I'm just not interested in doing Twin Peaks anymore. So Robert Ingalls is the co-writer of Fire Walk with Me. And then I don't a lot of these people didn't come back for the return because that was exclusively written and directed by Lynch and Frost. Like, so these people don't come back. None of these directors and all these people that are usually associated with Lynch, they're just, this is, the return is ultimately his and Frost's pet project, and they're the ones 100% sole control, and it kind of shows.
It very much shows. So, all right. So when we left off, Joe, it was Cooper had the dream.
Yeah, the dream. He, you know, we don't really need to explain it. If you're listening, you know what the dream is. It's become so iconic. I brought it up, believe in the last one. Like, you see when the Simpsons did the parody of it, the Who Shot Mr. Burns episode, you don't even have to have watched Twin Peaks at all to understand that as a Twin Peaks reference.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes. Are you talking about Lisa in the Red Room?
Yeah, Lisa, the burning suit, burns his suit.
Burns his suit. Burns his suit. Check his suit.
And Wiggum just does not.
Does not. I don't know. I'm not following.
God, those were great years of The Simpsons, man.
They really were. That was like when The Simpsons was on fire. But so it opens with Cooper being Cooper, ordering food, and Audrey shows up, and there is such a chemistry between Cooper and Audrey in this. In the first season especially, there was something going on, I think, between Kyle MacLachlan and Sherilyn Flynn, or at least some kind of mutual attraction, because it is very obvious.
It's palpable. You sense it. You can feel it. I mean, these are two very attractive people in a TV show together. I mean, they have kind of said nothing's ever happened, but you take that shit with a grain of salt, just because it's just, it's their private lives. It's not really any of our business. We know Kyle eventually dated Laura Flynn Boyle, which would inadvertently
derail the show.
Yeah, and give us Annie as a love interest. But we'll get into that when we do season 2. Right now, yeah, these two are just, Audrey doesn't have just fuck me eyes. She has like fuck me right now in a bathroom eyes.
Yeah. This is like we're at a club and we're gonna go into the shitty bathroom, and you're gonna fuck me right now. Look, I mean, you can really sense it. So, I mean, I love the dynamic between those two, because the sparks and the fireworks are blatant between these two.
Yeah, and so Cooper has Audrey sit with him because he got the note about One-Eyed Jacks in the last episode. He knows this is Audrey. She has the perfumes. He can sense that. Of all Cooper's, like, he's very good at deducing who people are having sex with and smells, apparently, but he cannot spot a one-armed man right in front of him.
No, and this is okay. So, I have to bring this up because you had the Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, and remind me what the agent's name in that one was again. Agent Chris Isaac.
Chet Desmond.
Chet Desmond. Not that he was a better FBI agent, because he really wasn't, but he was more suited for the mystery that was Twin Peaks versus Kyle MacLachlan. Like if there was a murder of, like, we think the husband or the wife or whoever was like the affair person was doing the killing, he would have nailed that in 2 minutes. He would have walked in a room and been like, boom, she was fucking her, and that dude killed him because of the love triangle that was going on back in 7th grade. Peace out, I'm out, motherfuckers. But in this particular thing, he's a little over his head.
Yeah, again, we're watching this with critical caps on, but it's a lot of funny, like, seeing Cooper's shortfalls now that we're kind of paying more attention to this stuff. But he's also good at reading, deducing handwriting samples, because he has Audrey write her name, and then they have another. I'll let you kind of talk. Like, what does he say about the curve?
Oh no, yeah, your Audrey. Your handwriting leans to the right. That indicates that you have a heart that yearns. Uh,
There's an FBI agent saying this to a high school girl. Let me just.
yeah. Let's repeat that. It's a FBI agent saying that to a high school girl, um, and then you know, luckily to prevent him from getting statutory, the sheriff and Lucy show up, and he's like, you got to go, Audrey. I got to hide my boner. Uh,
He definitely had a fear boner there.
he definitely had a fear boner. He's like, Gordon Cole's going to arrest me. Um, so, so, so then they come up and right away they're like, we need to talk, Cooper. Like what's going on? And Joe, he slows everything down to them and starts retconning his own dream. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so this was what stood out because we see the dream originally in the international pilot where Bob is in the basement of the Palmer house, blah blah blah. And then, it's redone to make sense of Cooper's dream in the last episode. But so Harry and Lucy are there. They want to know who killed Laura Palmer because Cooper called Harry in the middle of the night saying, I know who killed Laura Palmer, and yes, it can wait. Doesn't write it down, by the way. So he describes his dream, and he's like, you were there, and Lucy was there, and he's pointing out all these things that did not occur in the last episode in the dream or in the international pilot.
Yeah, it was very. I akin it to Wizard of Oz, and you were there, Harry, and Lucy was there. No, they weren't. No, you guys weren't anywhere near there.
So here's a theory. Was that dream that Cooper had? Do you think that could have been the entire return? Because Lucy's in that, and she does shoot Glenn Danzig Cooper.
He is Danzig in the return. Yeah, and that's a wonderful idea. Like, did they retcon it for that? I mean, the one-armed man is there. All this weird shit's going on. Was the return the full dream? That would be really cool. And we might have to discuss that more when we get to the return. I love that idea.
Yeah, the only thing is Harry wouldn't have been there, but his brother was. But
Robert Forrester?
Yeah, Robert Forrester. Fucking the guy who was originally supposed to play Harry Truman, by the way. He was originally going to play Harry Truman in the show Twin Peaks, but due to scheduling conflict, he couldn't do it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That would have been awesome.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool that he came back to play a Sheriff Truman in the return.
That is phenomenal. I mean, as much as I love Michael Otkian, I never can pronounce his name right. And I think he did a great job as Sheriff Truman. Could you imagine later in the episodes when, in the second season especially, when he's like drunk and in the bottle over Josie, how Robert Forster would have played that?
Yeah, it would be interesting. Consider, like Josie becomes a doorknob and a wooden doorknob, and that would probably cause Forster to drink even more, just knowing the ridiculousness of that whole thing.
Do you think he would have stood for the bullshit in the second season? He would have said, "Fuck this, I'm out."
I think Forrester was enough of an established actor above everybody else in that show, where he probably might have had a little more sway with that, where he had just kill my character off. I'm not doing this anymore.
Right.
So Cooper recites the dream. Again, a lot of these things, he's like, a one-armed man calls me. Like, there's no phone call. Is Mike. Mike, he's Bob's partner in crime until he saw the face of God, cuts his arm off that had a tattoo that said "Fire Walk with Me." Cooper says this. It's not recited in the dream. He does say he cuts his arm off. He says there's a tattoo. He doesn't say what the tattoo says. So, like, I don't know if Cooper's filling in the blanks for us here or he's just whatever. It's confusing considering, like, he's relaying information that was not information given to him from our point of view. So it's kind of strange to me.
Yeah, and again, they retcon a lot of things, right? And there's things that didn't happen. Like you had mentioned earlier, he got a phone call from the one-armed man. That's not what happened. You're in a goddamn boiler room, dude.
Yeah. And like Mike's not in the boiler room. He has a vision of Mike.
Right, right, right. No,
And he recites the Fire Walk with Me poem, which
and
is
again,
Al
oh,
Strobel, the fucking best. Like he kills it as the hammed up shoe salesman in the next episode and the spooky apparition one armed man here.
and I will say again, okay, you got the one-armed man. Call me insensitive, but I mean he is one-armed when you see him. He is one fucking armed. It would have been hard for him to make a call with a rotary phone back in the day. I'm just saying that would not have been an easy task.
Well, I mean, the funny thing too is Hawk recognized him in the last episode. He's like, there's a one armed man just kind of walking around. And then the pilot, he's in the elevator with Cooper and Harry, and they're just like not batting an eye. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not to be insensitive either, but a one armed man's going to stand out to me, and I'm not an FBI man.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's the other thing. So they spotted him twice now in the pilot and in this thing. So when we get to episode 5, I'm gonna have problems. Um, so
But anyway, so Cooper tells him the dream, and so Harry's like, well, who killed her? And Cooper's like, I don't remember. So he's just wasting everybody's time, and he prefaces this by explaining where dreams come from. Cooper is just time is of the essence in a murder investigation.
right, right. But and I do want to say this though, he does bring up the thing of, so they're like, he's like, I don't. So they ask him at the end of all this. So who killed Laura Palmer? I don't remember. And they're like, damn. And I love that scene, and where they both say that because Lucy's just copying Truman. He's like, crack the code. My dream is a code. Crack the code. Solve the crime. And throughout the series, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Joe. They subtly, I don't think it was all that subtly, but I don't think the audience was understanding it. Things that appear in sentences and words that are said during the rest of the season are played out, and you hear them, and they're kind of coaxing you along, and like, oh, that's reference to the dream. That's part of the code, And I think the audience was somewhat lost on that, and then they do it again in season 2, but they do it much more over the head.
Yes, it's subtle, but like if you're paying attention, you're picking up on these clues. But I don't know if it was the network was just like TV networks, especially with regard to Twin Peaks, was really a bunch of idiots. They forced the reveal. They eventually they are so annoying that Mark Frost and Lynch eventually just walked away from the project. Like their notes, and I'm guessing some of the notes were like, yeah, these very obvious clues are just, you got to make them more obvious. Which Lynch's fuck you is, yeah, we're gonna make it literally like as literal as possible, that like you can't miss this, and we're gonna have Cooper even say the clue as he sees it, so it is, you dummies.
Right, yeah, and that was kind of because again, they in this episode, and we'll get to it. Jacoby, when they interviewed Jacoby, oh no, it's not this episode, it's the next episode. See, I got these two a little mixed up here. But in these 2 episodes, he interviews Jacoby, and Jacoby says Laura was filled with secrets. That's straight out of the dream. And that was supposed to be like a hook, like, come on, guys, follow along. And I don't know how many people got it. I got it.
Yeah,
you got it. Mm-hmm. But, again, we were 8 years old, like, just hanging on every word of the show because it was nothing we had seen before.
No, this show was just, it blew my mind at a young age. And so, yeah, I'm hanging on to every word. You're hanging on to every word. I'm guessing other people weren't. And they're like, what the hell? Maybe. But to get on to the next scene, Paul, Albert.
I love Albert.
Albert's the best.
Albert's the best.
Fuck Gene Kelly, Albert.
Dude, so there's a fight over the morgue. So at this point, they're trying to do the postmortem, but the funeral's that day. And I do have some issues with this. And this is something that's bothered me. And it's funny. I'm going to bring something up because I watched a little bit of the X-Files last night trying to sleep. Where the FBI's there. They have full, he's there to do this thing on the postmortem. And he's fighting with Doc Hayward over doing the autopsy because the funeral is going to be that day. And, they get called over, Cooper and Truman get called over to get into to stop the fight. And it escalates to Albert getting punched by the worst sucker punch in the world. I mean,
yeah, a Rocky IV haymaker, like that fight scene between Drago and Rocky at the end where they're just throwing the widest punches imaginable. Albert somehow sucker punched by an even more obvious haymaker.
Dude, it is. I mean, I describe it as a WWE punch. He winds up, cocks his fist like it's the Superman punch, and then comes in and hits him. And Albert's like, small town sucker punch. No, it's not a small town sucker punch. You had a giant window. To avoid that.
And here, they kind of make Albert seem the asshole here, but he is absolutely right. If the funeral can be held anytime, but he needs all the information he can so they can solve this murder.
100% correct.
He's just not very polite about it.
Right, because this is my whole thing. I mean, you have a small town, it's a murder. I mean, we were dealing with Jacob Wetterling at the time. If Jacob Wetterling's body had been found, guaranteed the Wetterling family would have been like, do whatever you need to do. We will do a closed casket corpse funeral whenever. We had FBI in town. They would have been like, take weeks with the body if you need to. We want to know who and what happened to our kid.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. You kind of for the TV show, it's got to create this tension, and it's weird. Like we're looking at this with critical hats on. Like I don't really mind this when I'm just casually watching, doing my annual rewatch of Twin Peaks. But yeah, it's kind of weird. And why is Ben Horn there?
Why? I don't know. Because he represents the town, the very town that he's been fucking and trying to.
Well, not even just the town. There's, Doc Hayward's the cock of Ben Horn.
Oh my God! Yes, they are. Oh, that's ridiculous when you think about it. Sorry, you're going to hear a soda open up. I got to get a drink.
Yeah, I'm packing sodas too because it's.
Yeah. So I will bring this up because I saw this on the pilot episode of X-Files last night, which we talked about would not have happened without Twin Peaks. And actually watching the pilot, there is so much Twin Peaks. I wouldn't even call it homage. I mean, it feels directly ripped off.
Yeah. But I believe Chris Carter doesn't even hide it. He says his number one influence, like he saw Twin Peaks and that's where, we can do this.
Mm-hmm. So in that episode, it's the episode where the kids are being abducted by aliens and they find this alien corpse. Well, they're going out, they see this bright light in the middle of the woods, and Scully and Mulder run up, and there's a sheriff. There's like, you're on private property. You come here, you're going to be arrested. And they're like, we're FBI agents. I don't care who you are. I'm going to arrest you. What? No, that's not how it works. That's not how jurisdiction works, guys. And I was just, I was thinking about this scene as I'm doing. I'm like, yeah, that's not how jurisdiction works. So it ends with him getting punched, and Cooper, siding with them and going like, get me whatever findings you have and let's get the funeral on.
Yes. And so after this, we get a sneak peek into the meta show, Invitation to Love.
Invitation to Love.
It mirrors what's going on in the show. It does. We talked about this before. It even spoils some of the things.
Mm-hmm.
but what it's doing here is like it shows the opening credits and it shows an actress playing two different characters. And right after this, Maddie Ferguson shows up, played
Yeah.
by Cheryl Lee.
Yep. And who is the cousin that looks exactly like Laura Palmer.
Yeah. Again, a broad hint. That's my cousin. Doesn't she look almost exactly like Laura Palmer? The little man said this.
Right, right. And this is those clues. This is those things. This is what they do. And um I want to bring up the meta because this is before meta was a big thing. Meta to now is like, okay, everything's meta. Nothing was this meta ever. And I liked the idea of the whole invitation to love. However, um, Frost and Lynch did not, Joe. This is what you were telling me.
Yeah, they were. They. I think they saw it as like trying to be too clever with a show that's already pretty well written and clever enough. I mean, it doesn't come back after the first season. It's just. I think they didn't care for it. I think it was probably a decision made by the people who were making the show after because they were hands on, but like there weren't like showrunners like we know of today who are like overlooking every aspect. Like they put the wheels in motion. Here's our game plan for the season. Guys, do what you need to do.
Yep.
And so they got this invitation to love, and they just didn't like it. I think it's funny too because like the opening credits for Invitation to Love is on Blue Velvet. Looks just like the title card from the movie Blue Velvet. So I think it was a little too on the nose for those two.
Yeah, I think Lynch maybe wasn't very appreciative of it, and that's another thing to bring up here is that this was, and I think still is fairly common for a lot of shows, is that they're not written by the same people. The one show that comes to mind that was, and I loved it for it, was Babylon 5. It was written and directed by the same person. And he knew exactly what was going to happen. I mean, he had an entire storyboard for all 5 seasons, and if anyone left the show, he had what he called trapdoors to move the plot along, and if someone were to go. I mean, it was really meticulous. But that was so rare, and even to this day is so rare for a show to be planned out that far ahead.
Yeah.
And
I think for comedy, the closest would probably be Arrested Development, in which they had the same writers, and they kind of had to with a show like that, where it's always referencing itself to like it's meta, it's good, but they had to keep the same writers and Mitch Hurwitz just because you start introducing new people and trying to add new things. It shows like that you got to keep it consistent, and I think like Babylon 5, like you said, kind of set the tone. Like let's just keep the same people.
Yeah,
doing
absolutely.
This. Keep it consistent because like with X-Files, you have different people coming in. A lot of times it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But with something like Twin Peaks, where it feels more like a movie than a procedural.
Yes, and that was something else that was different. Procedurals were also very rare at the time. A lot of things they'd keep little things, but storylines were kind of, different. Procedurals were not very common in 1990 outside of soap operas. And this really proved that you could do it with other things in terms of television. So we've gone way off the path here. So Maddie shows up, and it is the same actress. And she has black hair and glasses. To try and make her, not different, but definitely, I mean, if I saw that cousin, I'd be looking at Leland going, "What did you do, dude?"
Yeah. This is a nod to Lynch's one of his favorite movies, Sunset Boulevard, where an actress plays two different roles. Lynch loves film noir. I love film noir. I love these little nods to it. If there was going to be a season 3 with this run, Cheryl Lee was going to come back as another person with red hair.
Yeah. So tell me about that. He was going to bring her. So was he going to was he just going to offer every season? Was that going to be the idea that Cheryl Lynn was just going to die that was going to be the running theme?
I hope so. I read the thing with Frost where they kind of asked him about it, and he said it was an idea that they were spitballing around, but like they kind of knew there wasn't gonna be a season 3, but they wanted to have a game plan in place with ideas, and that was one of the ideas. But eventually, as we know, season 3 doesn't come for another 25, 26 years. Cheryl Lee does return for it, but she doesn't wear a red wig.
Yeah, oh, right. She should have. She should have. And so she introduces herself to Leland, and then we get to it's Bobby, and it's his dad. No, it's Bobby, and he's in front of in the church, and that's a really cool framing shot. Wouldn't you agree, Joe?
Yeah, it's like a reverse crucifixion in a sense. Like his arms are low, but it shows like he's going through this struggle. It's not just the struggle of his coked up girlfriend was just raped and murdered, but Bobby, as we know, killed a cop.
He did. He kills a cop. Bobby's not a good dude, and yet we're gonna find out just what a whiny bitch he is in a little bit here. It's a weird character, isn't it? What is that? He killed a cop,
and then he becomes a cop.
Mm-hmm.
He becomes a cop.
I kind of feel like they mixed the James and the Bobby character in the return a little bit. Like, really, that should have been James, maybe. But then they have the funeral, and here's the thing: the guy that kills the cop has by far the best scene in this episode, and is absolutely right as he calls everyone out at the funeral.
Yeah, we let her die. We all knew she was in trouble, and we didn't do anything to help her. And I think this is like one of those things, like, yeah, every small community, there's the problematic person, the person we see, the person in your community is having a lot of trouble, and you don't do anything, and then it's too late when something terrible happens. Like, this is just something you just see. You don't until you start reflecting on it. It's we've had friends in high school who went down paths, and we probably could have did more, but we didn't.
But we didn't. We're all guilty of it. Yeah,
it's just part of life. It's part of learning and growing and all that.
And what he says, he calls everyone. You knew she was in trouble. No one helped her. Everyone looked the other way, and he's 100% right to be angry and go off on everyone. And then James Hurley, who was supposedly in love with her, shows up late like a jackass to the fucking funeral and starts a fight with him.
Yeah, fucking goddamn James. Like, again, this has nothing to do with James Marshall. This is just a lot of this spite we have is from the nonsense that comes in season 2. But I'm just, it's like a Pavlovian thing where I see James and I just get upset. I mean, when we were because you and I would live watch The Return when it aired, and we'd be messaging each other. And when James comes into the Roadhouse and starts singing Just You and I had to get up and take a walk because I was so pissed off.
It's bad. It's bad. And again, you know what? I hate on him, but it's not his fault. We'll get to that when it actually happens. But then they do it again in The Return. But yeah, part of it with James really is the writing, because we're going to learn more about James in these episodes, but he really was like a poorly written character. They could have done a lot more with him. He was kind of the dark horse. He rode the motorcycle. He was kind of doing his own investigation with Donna. They could have done more to make him interesting, and instead they make him insufferable.
Yeah, and it felt like they're kind of building him up as like a James Dean type character, especially in the pilot. He's like the rebel, but with the heart of gold type of thing. I think that's what they were going for, and they just forgot about that or something. But yeah, James shows up late to his girlfriend's funeral, picks a fight. We get like this weird Lynchian slow motion fight and audio, which, I mean, when you're people just don't try to emulate Lynch. It never works because he does it for a reason, and you're just doing it just, hey, we don't want to have a Lynchian thing in this episode yet. Let's add this.
Agree. It was a really undeserving place for it. And then we get Leland freaking out from all this.
Yeah, he jumps on the coffin, and then the mechanism that's lowering it starts bobbing up and down, which after seeing Fire Walk with Me has a whole other new connotation for me with Leland on top of his daughter.
A little bit.
But he's crying, and you feel bad. Sarah's screaming like, "You're ruining this, Leland!" But, like knowing like who they really are after the return, it's like, well, Bob and Judy are having a spat
at the funeral, and yeah, I just so and then and it's hard. It's really honestly a heartbreaking scene.
It is. And, Ray Wise does an excellent job as a grieving father in this.
I mean, I love Ray Wise. He's another one of those guys where if I find out he's in a movie, I watch it. He is just so good at playing emotions and characters and being subtle, and his range really is 0 to 100 without being out of control. When he's at 100, it's still believable. But the thing that bothers me about this is the very next scene. It cuts to Shelley talking to two truckers, making fun. She's got like her hands out, and she's like emulating like him walking and then falling, and then the thing going up and down with her hands. Okay, Joe, when we were kids, and there was the abduction of Jacob Wetterling, our parents were gossiping about who could have done it. Like, it was the talk of the town.
Yeah, and the scary thing when you're a little kid is when parents are talking, it has, especially at that age, it has a little more agency. You kind of take it as truth. I don't think they knew that they were terrifying us with their theories, because, like, to them, it's bullshit. To us, like, oh my God, this is what really happened, So that's terrifying, because they're kind of spitballing and whatever, shooting the shit with their friends, like we do. But like for us, we're hearing this, like, oh God, like you were saying, oh, your dad was like the guy down the road did it.
Yeah, my dad was a ridiculous alcoholic, notorious alcoholic, and I don't even hide it from him, and or hide about it. Everyone who knew my old man knew that guy was a drunk. But the thing is that, yeah, he's sitting around one day with the neighbors, and he's wasted, and I'm 8 years old, and he's in the kitchen, and he goes, "I bet it was the guy that used to live behind the house here. He was weird. He did weird shit in the backyard." And I'm going, "Oh my God, I live next to a killer." But no one is talking about who killed Laura Palmer in this town. They're doing all their fucking CDE grade, bullshit. Nobody cares. And what they're going to gossip about is the old man crying on the casket. That's, these are some horrible people in this town.
Yeah, it's just I feel bad for Shelley because she's in that relationship with Leo, but we'll get to it when we watch The Return. But she says James has always been cool. I fucking hate Shelley now.
I do too.
And it's not even this scene. It was her saying James was always cool. This just makes it worse for me. But
yeah, she has a mean streak. She has a mean streak in her for this one.
Yeah.
And so that's happening, and we kind of learn about fucking Hank at this point.
Oh, right? Hank Jennings, who threw the big football game in the Secret History of Twin Peaks. He's a con. Now we're going into this is the CD plot of the mill.
And I think we should just at this point hammer out these CDE plots. Do you agree?
Yeah. So basically, Hank's on parole. For manslaughter.
And Hank is who? Hank is the wife. Is the husband of Norma.
It's Norma's husband. Yep. We kind of hear about the parole hearing because she's talking with the lawyer or whatever, who's like hitting on her. Might I add?
Yeah, the lawyer's hitting on her.
Yeah, like, I'm sorry, lawyer. Hank gets out and he catches wind. He's killed a guy. He's of ill repute. He carries a domino for some reason.
Around in the prison, Joe, in the prison. And yes. he licks and sucks on the fucking thing.
Yeah, he's he's victim number one for Voldemort here.
Voldemort. And when you by the way, if you don't know, we're not gonna tell you what Voldemort is, but we're gonna say that you should really listen to the next Cast That Movie podcast, because we have a special guest, aka this fucking guy Joe, and we talk about. If you want to know what Voldemort is, we'll explain it in that podcast. But yeah, he would be victim number one. And again, in a quarantine and watching this, fucking gross.
Yes, it's Hank is he's a doofus too. He's this is when the show starts expanding the cast, which I don't think it needed to do. And it's expanding on this whole mill thing, and it gets so convoluted. Basically, Ben Horn wants to buy the mill and develop Ghostwood. This is property he nor Catherine Martell own. Thus, we'll keep calling it the worst business decision.
It is. Oh my God, this is so bad. And it goes on for both episodes where they're in this hotel and they're talking about the things they're going to do. And, again, when you look at the secret history of Twin Peaks, these are the two big families, the big money makers, the mill owner and the lodge owner. And this is they're inherited. They're from old money, old Twin Peaks money. And my God, how did they keep it?
Ben Horn just drops $1,000 poker chip when he's with Catherine at the hotel, and she gets jealous for some reason. Like, this dude's, come on, he's married. He made a cuck out of poor old Doc Haywood. Like, there's no reason to get jealous. Like, you know what you're getting into with Ben Horn. This stuff is, so they're going to want to buy this property. And what's baffling, I'm just going to say it now, it's in the next episode. Or it might have been in this episode. I don't remember. I think it's in the next episode. There's a flyer for the Stop Ghostwood project. This is a secret project nobody's supposed to know about, but yet there's flyers up protesting it.
And again, we could talk about both of these things, because I think we just really need to get through like both episodes of these plot lines. But yes, this is okay. This is a secret plot that they flew an entire fucking country in for.
Yes.
And the Norwegians, and it was a classroom essentially filled with all these people that are going to sign off on this project. No one's supposed to know about this project, but it's not a very good kept secret. Nobody's done anything. I mean, and again, you got an FBI guy snooping around on this thing, and you have Stop Ghostwood. Do you not think Cooper should ask, what is Ghostwood? That's a weird name for something. And why the fuck is it called Ghostwood?
Yeah, he's concerned about the trees in the pilot. What are these the Douglas firs? Ghostwood doesn't. So this is going on. Hank's involved. It gets more into season 2. It's just stupid, but he's part of this whole mill thing. He's working for, I believe it's Catherine. Ben hires Leo to burn the mill down.
Let's talk about when they meet. Let's talk about when they meet, please. Can we talk about when they meet?
Yes. So Leo, criminal mastermind who can't find his bloody shirt in all his house, even though Shelley's hiding it in the most obvious cupboards, drives his cherry red, fire red Corvette to a secret meeting with a town billionaire
in the middle of the night, not far from the mill where they're going to burn down. Right? Like we see that spot a couple of times. It's not that far from the mill.
No, and Leo. This is actually, I like Leo's. He's not a likable character, but he does have like some moments where he's generally funny. And so they're making the plans, and then we'll get into it here when we start talking about the Bookhouse Boys, but we're just kind of speeding along these plots that we don't really give a shit about. So he has a body with him. It's Bernard Renault.
Yes.
He's whatever. And Leo's just sitting there smoking a cigarette, and Ben's like, is that a body? He's like, yeah. I told him if he ever ratted on me, I'd kill him. So did he rat on you? No, but he shouldn't have listened to me anyway. Yeah, he shouldn't have trusted me anyway. And he just says it so flippant. It's just, I'm laughing. Eric DeRay's delivery of that line.
And then again, it goes to show just how bad Ben Horn is with his business deals. Because right then and there, I've been like, okay, I'm gonna find someone different, right?
Yeah, this dude just standing here, this bright red car with a dead body 2 feet away from his feet.
For their secret meeting, like everything would go up if they felt. Could you imagine if they're like, "Hey, bright red Corvette, where's that going?" Because what we didn't talk about was, and what's going to come up is that bright red Corvette is a big deal, and here's the only one that has a bright red Corvette is fucking Leo. Holy shit, these guys! I love it. I fucking love it. So. We should probably jump back real quick just so we can say the Renaults. Bernard, who is Bernard Renault? The Renaults are a drug family in Canada, Joe.
Yeah, they're small time. Like they play it up here as big time, but like Secret History kind of points out like these are just kind of local schmucks. But you and I are from like a smaller-ish area too, where everybody knows who the drug dealers are, and they're menacing, but like the show plays them up as like kingpins when they're really just small time idiots.
Mm-hmm. So what happened was that well, let's move on. Well, let's keep going with these B and C plots here. So so fucking that's all going on, and then meanwhile, so Hank is. Should we talk about Hank's parole or
he gets paroled. Fucking his wife gives it's the worst parole hearing because he expresses no guilt or remorse or anything. He's just like, fate handed me a bad deal. Like, no, you ran over a guy and killed him, dude.
Right, and I love that. I love how the hearing board's like, fate didn't give you involuntary manslaughter. I'll take that, but it did put me here so I could learn about my mistakes. Fuckface.
Yeah, there's no way he's getting paroled. Like, I think you and I discussed this briefly, but we've seen Charles Manson give a better parole.
It's on the par of a Charles Manson parole hearing. Like, there is obviously no empathy or remorse from this guy. There's no way he would have gotten out. And Norma, all she had to do too is be like, "Fuck it. Do you see this guy? I don't fucking want to deal with him." But instead, she's like, "Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll give him a job." And that apparently him getting a job to get out of jail was enough. Like apparently the taxpayer money was enough. All right, we'll put him out in there. We'll get our taxes. We'll pay for the time he was in jail. Fuck that, not happening. He wasn't getting out.
Yeah, and then the other part of this. Okay, so then at the end of episode 5, we find out Hank's connected to Josie. He has the amazing ability. Like if Cooper can deduce who people are having sex with, Hank has the ability of knowing people are opening their mail because he calls right after Josie opens up a letter from the jail of a sketch of his domino, and he calls her up in the middle of the night. What prison is he at where he can just make phone calls whenever he wants?
It's right. It's like I said, this is beyond minimum. I had a friend of mine that was in minimum security prison, and there's no way. Like this is white collar prison is what he's allowed to do. He's a call this person, and it is very convenient that in the middle of the night she opens it and she gets the domino, and the first thing he says to her, "Did you get my letter?" Oh, that's so soap opera bullshit. It's so bad. It's so bad writing. Yeah,
but we're gonna put this on the record that Hank has a Cooper-esque ability of deducing when people are opening their mail. He just knows. We don't know why, but he just knows when you're opening your heating bill, and he'll call you and ask you about it. So,
yeah.
And we have the other set of the cookbooks that we kind of brought up last episode, which makes no sense. You know more about business and all that and sales. Why would you have cookbooks of a mill? It does. There's no board of directors that you're trying to trick. It's Josie's the sole owner of the Packard mill.
And here's the thing. Again, we talked about it briefly, and the other thing, the cookbook thing doesn't make any sense because all he's doing is really fucking himself, and because he wants to buy it, And the whole idea of the cookbook is to make it look like the mill's doing better than it actually is. But that hurts the sale because it doesn't make any sense. Like it really, when you try to deduce the thing, it hurts my brain. When I go, why do we have this cookbook? But apparently it was needed.
But their plan is to burn the mill down. So like he just wants the proper. He's not even buying the mill because the mill is going to go away anyway. So why cook the books of something you're just going to get rid of, or even burn it down? Because like Josie will just get the insurance money and probably just sell the property off to Ben. These cookbooks have nothing to do with any of that.
Right. It
doesn't raise the property value in any way.
No. It doesn't, and that's the weird thing. So I don't understand the whole purpose of that, and that's going over my head. So yeah, they're still doing their thing there. I mean, these two episodes are heavily on Ben and Catherine.
Yeah, and the last thread here is Big Ed and Nadine. Nadine, they're gonna be rich. Nadine's happy because I believe they bumped some uglies the night before. I just kind of want to bring it up because I don't think we did in the last episodes that Big Ed and Nadine are also like the creepy parents and the people under the stairs.
Very much so.
They're like the same actor. Like they're a couple. If you've never seen People Under the Stairs and you're a Twin Peaks fan, check it out. It's one of Wes Craven's stranger movies.
It's really bizarre. I recommend seeing it just to say you saw it.
Yeah. So yeah, they're the potential for profits off these no noise curtain rods or whatever. God damn. Yeah, these plots were just ridiculous. So now we're going to get back into the meat and potatoes of what Paul and I like. And we meet the Bookhouse Boys.
The Bookhouse Boys, the secret society.
Yes, it's been going on for generations. They basically a vigilante group made up of the locals that are like, we bring up dualism as a big thing in Lynch's work. The Bookhouse Boys would be the lighter side to fend off the darker side. And we get a little hint that they know something's up in these woods. They don't know about the lodges. Hawk knows about the lodges. He doesn't tell anybody because they would probably think he's fucking nuts.
But yes, it is brought up later that he knows the lodges and never brings it up in all this time.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, like if you're sitting there like in the bookhouse, like, reading, drinking coffee, and somebody's like, there's this lodge and it has chevrons on the floor and like there's a little man who talks backward, like you're gonna be like, this guy's fucking nuts. Like, get him out of this bookhouse.
This is true.
So yeah, but we were introduced because Harry wants to show off his new trick that he knows of Cooper's amazing ability to know who's banging who.
Yes.
So that's R and Paul. Go on.
So they they're getting pie, and so Norma comes up and brings in the pie and walks away, and Cooper looks at Big Ed and goes, "So how long have you and Norma been together?" And like they all had a bet, like, "Oh, Cooper's gonna know it," and he catches it right away. There is nothing there, and he catches it right away using that sixth sense that he could have that is not needed for this fucking case.
Yes, but they do gain. They trust Cooper enough. Like he's a good enough he's like a good enough soul or whatever that they trust him. The show explain their secret society, and like I said, they hint at the darkness in the woods, but they also when Harry needs help with cases, they help out by staking out things and all that, kind of helping kind of like a volunteer firefighter crew in a sense, that they're volunteering their time, just kind of help each other out. So they bring Cooper to their book house where they have Bernard held captive. You're bringing a G-man to a felony.
This is so ridiculous. Yes, so they had raided the the Roadhouse, which is basically run by the Renaults.
Which are Canadians running an American bar or a United States bar.
which has some legal implications. Again, I'm sure there's paperwork involved, things like that, but it does beg the question of can they be doing this, and can Jock just be walking across the border whenever he wants to run his bar? And they have a thing rigged up that when they're getting raided, it's a flashing red light. So Jacques saw this and runs off and calls Leo and makes Leo bail him out. And meanwhile, the fucking felony is occurring, and Cooper goes along with this. Now, my question is, they could never let him go. How did Leo find him? How did he get to Leo? Because there's no way you can ever let this guy go.
The thing is, they can't keep holding him. That you're implementing the federal government now. Like, I'm sure Cooper's probably like, you guys got to let this guy go. Like, we got the information from him. Like, he's not going to say anything. He's a scared Canadian. So, like, just let him run off. And I'm sure his first thing, I don't know why Bernard would go to Leo. As Leo flippantly says, he shouldn't have trusted him. I don't know. He shouldn't have trusted me in the first place.
Right.
So I'm guessing he beelined to Leo, as he's kind of like the United States point person, I imagine, for the Renaults is Leo.
That's a bad point person to have.
Yeah. Well, like, they also have the Deer Creek Police Department in Firewalk with me. Like,
God.
They're not really good at picking their allies.
No, not very much. So, so they question him. He denies anything. He denies everything. They didn't scare him. They didn't do anything. So I don't know how they let him go. So at this point, it cuts to Leo getting the phone call. Before I get that, I do want to explain a little bit more what I think about the Bookhouse Boys, because the secret history goes into it quite a bit. This is a group that's been around forever, and it seems like their history was lost a little bit about what the thing was, because they do kind of hint a little bit that the Bookhouse Boys knew more in the secret history than this current generation does. Would you agree with that, Joe?
Yeah, and the secret history, like, these guys, I mean, that's where the archivist gets a lot of this information, I believe, is what he finds in the Bookhouse for, like, at least what's going on with the town at that point. Fun fact is Hank Jennings was kicked out of the Bookhouse Boys for throwing that high school football game for the Renaults, which is like, dear God, why are you adding to this?
Well, and again, this is the same Bookhouse Boys that will fucking commit a felony with a G-man. But throw a football game for the Renaults and you're out, mister.
Yeah, but you hold a foreign citizen captive illegally.
Oh shit! I didn't even think about the fucking the international implications of this. Oh shit!
Yeah, there's so many laws broken right now. Fucking James and his buddy, the one that we see in the pilot, he shows up here and we'll never see him again.
Right, I was kind of excited. I'm like, oh, he's back. Oh no, he's not. So then it cuts to Leo freaking out, and we find out that Shelley has a gun, and
a fetish guns,
and a fetish guns, which yes, we'll find out. And then the episode ends with about dancing. It ends with Leland dancing, and I'm going to let you talk about that and your thoughts on Leland dancing.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it, and I was kind of confused why it's always with Get Happy. And you pointed out, and you made a really good point. It's like, it's more, I think you thought it was more about music in the air, where they come from. And
yes.
That's the little man dances, which is a huge connection, if you think about it, to what eventually the reveal is Leland is acting like a lodge entity.
Right. So yeah, because he always acts crazy when music's around, and one of the things, the clues is, there's where we're from, there's always music in the air, and I don't want to give too much away. We've already hinted at it, I think, in several of these podcasts, and people that know it know. But when we get the reveal, even though there was never supposed to be a reveal, I do feel like that Lynch really felt that this was going to be like, if you ever came back and said, "Who did it?" I told you who did it through the clues. You just have to watch the show and find out.
Yeah, they both, Lynch and Frost, said when they set out to, when they're writing the show, they had to know who the killer was. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they can't be like, it's a lot of the things like Lost, when that show was on. They had like 2 seasons where it's just kind of it's fumbling because they don't know what the mystery is. Twin Peaks got ahead of that by, they know who the killer is, but they're just never going to reveal it.
Yeah. They had to know, and again, all signs point to who the killer is. So then in episode 4, that opens up with them doing the sketch.
Yes, and this is now, because a lot of this is, we're doing the backdrop of the Wetterling case, because this happened at the same time as this was going on in our small town. The sketch is one. It's frightening. Like, I've thought about buying posters of it, but I think I would actually be afraid to see that every day in my house of Bob.
Agreed,
But
100%.
around that, like 6 months before, like, we're getting 3 sketches of who eventually, of the suspect of who kidnapped Jacob Wetterling. And the thing is, like, these sketches, they have to be pretty broad, because eyewitness accounts on things are not very reliable. They just, people have their own internal biases. They'll see things the way they see it. That's why a lot of times, like, unless a witness sees a crime actually happening, eyewitness accounts are just, they're taken with a grain of salt within a lot of investigations. Just like a potential suspects, there's just too biased. There's too many variables going in. People remember things differently. It's not like TV where the eyewitness account of a guy running out. Well, yeah, that was it. No, it's like they kind of like, that kind of looks like the guy. I'm not sure, because people always second guess themselves. But we get in these creepy sketches in St. Cloud of, eventually, hindsight's always 2020. The guy who did the crime looks a lot like these goddamn sketches.
Right. And here's the thing I want to bring up on that, is that sketches are ambiguous. They're not they're not a photograph, not things that. So you have 8-year-old, and there was about 3 of them out at the time. And I mean, I remember being a kid and going to the mall with my mom and going places, and having this image of the sketch of the Jacob Wetterling, and being able to pick out 100 adults that look like that guy. And it was very scary. Now, this particular sketch of Bob is terrifying. Like, he looks like a werewolf. It is. And the thing is that we had talked about this a little bit. You get so little of actual Bob that picture becomes synonymous with Bob, and whoever drew it and did it was brilliant, because it is really terrifying.
Yeah, it's scary. Like, I had nightmares of Bob. Like, we don't make, we don't hide the fact that Bob scared the shit out of us growing up. Like, I had nightmares about Bob. It's just, you're a kid, you have a wild imagination, especially when, like, you see a scene where he's like in a basement area, like from the International Pilot. It's like, oh my God, that looks like my basement. Is Bob fucking down there? You're just a kid. Your imagination goes wild. Bob is scary, and I feel bad because, like, by all accounts, Frank Silva was like the nicest guy in the world.
He was. He was. He was. I think we said it earlier. He took his mom to the awards. He was the nicest guy.
Yeah, and so, but he plays. I mean, it's creepy. It's just like the way he's shot, and we don't get a lot of him. We don't get a lot of Bob, like, throughout the whole series. There's just not a lot of him, and the little we do get is so fucking terrifying in reflections and mirrors. It's like, oh my God, during the reveal, like, I'm not gonna say the name because we'll get to it, but when you see Bob reflecting back, I had nightmares I still have nightmares about stuff like that.
Right. Absolutely, absolutely. Yes. It is absolutely terrifying. And so the one thing that kind of confused me though, was that, you know, why do they, I mean, they won't really explain why they went to her to get the vision, like, and how it does, like exactly why they're there to get the vision of her. And in the pilot and later, Hawk's the one that did it, but Andy's the one that's drawing it. Weird. I don't retcon. This is again that continuity that gets lost. But the most glaring thing is Leland makes fun of her.
Yeah, he's in his bathrobe, uh, just looking like shit.
Oh, he looks like total ass.
And he's just like, he's mocking his wife, who's had these very terrifying visions. Like, Leland has no leg to stand on for mocking somebody for having like an episode like this when he just got like kicked out of his daughter's post-funeral wake thing for dancing and crying nonstop. Like, dude, take a look in the mirror, dude.
Right. And he's like, she had 2 visions. Tell him about the necklace. And she's like, Leland, why do you hate me?
Yeah. So the other vision is she saw Jacoby taking the necklace, and Donna's there for some reason.
Why is she allowed at this? Why is Donna sitting on the couch hanging out? Like, again, this is like Ben Horn being at the hunt. Like, people just randomly are allowed to just show up to things.
Yeah. So, but now Donna's like, oh God, like Sarah saw this. Like, is the necklace still there? So she and James go try to find it. It's gone. Like, Sarah's vision is a real vision. She's seeing these things, and yeah. So.
Yep. And what happens is afterwards they take the sketch to Cooper, and Cooper's like, yep, this is the man I saw in my dream. I figured my dream and her vision were related, but I didn't want to influence her. This is our guy. This is the guy we're looking for.
Yes.
Now, the crazy thing is, nobody's seen this guy in the fucking, like, you haven't seen him in the town. Why isn't he on the phone with Gordon Cole having this APB put out everywhere? I mean, it wouldn't have mattered, but what the fuck?
Because, Paul, this is a Blue Rose case.
Ah, that's right. All right. Yep, fair enough. And we'll get into the Blue Rose later.
Convenience. Yes. Even though we did, when they were writing the show, these first season, I doubt Blue Rose was even a thing. But hey, convenience.
Convenience. It is what it is.
So we also have, what I'm going to skip over the invitation to love part here too, but it shows up in every episode, and I don't want to get bogged down on it. Lucy does drops like the whole plot of the show on Harry when he gets into work. It's a little funny scene, but Cooper is interviewing Jacoby.
Yes. And what does Jacoby say? She was full of secrets. And he's also being a dick. He's hiding behind doctor-client confidentiality. She's fucking dead. It's an FBI case. You have to report that shit. Do you not?
And she reports crimes, like, even if it's like narcotics abuse, which she does, or whatever. She's a prostitute at the One-Eyed Jack's. He has to be reporting this, considering she's probably a minor. Especially because she's a minor when some of this is taking place. Yeah, he's being a real dick about it. He's a bad doctor. I'm glad Secret History actually has him disbarred after the Laura Palmer murder, because I think like Frost kind of is like, yeah, that in hindsight, this guy's a terrible psychiatrist. He's sleeping with his patients. It's bad. But he does also, we get another red herring. He's like, yeah, I followed her one night, or it might have been the night of the murder. I'm not entirely, I don't remember that. But he did say there was a red Corvette. So we have another red herring at Leo being the perp.
Yes. And that's, again, points out the whole why it was so goddamn dumb for him to take that to the goddamn meeting. And so they do this, and then Gordon Cole.
Paul!
Joe, what's going on over there in your podcast?
I love Gordon Cole. Lynch. This is like the only time I think Lynch has ever pulled a Hitchcock where he puts himself in his own movies or his own projects. He plays the FBI agent Gordon Cole. Hard of hearing. He shouts.
So great.
He's calling. He's confirming Albert's findings. The item with the J in her stomach was part of a chip from One-Eyed Jack's. And he also he pisses Cooper off a bit. He's like, Albert wants to go to the state attorney about Harry punching him. Because Cooper basically told Harry to go fuck himself. I mean, he's just...
Yes, and it's so great because he's like, Gordon, I'm not gonna, say, you know how Albert is, Gordon, and you hear him going, don't you hang up on me, Cooper, and Cooper hangs up on his own boss. The balls of Cooper.
Yeah, like you and I or anybody else would have been fired if we did that. Just like straight up told our boss to go fuck himself and then hang up. Like, but not Cooper. He's yeah. I love it. Is this Gordon Cole? He comes in later too. Like Lynch, I love him as the FBI guy. Can't hear. You think he just made the hard of hearing things just so he could just yell all the time?
Right. So so I love, and that's like again the first interjection. So then they they find out that Laura has the giant coke habit, and then they get a call from Hawk. He found the one-armed man.
Yeah, he's the only good cop in this town. Like, he recognized this guy's a little suspicious at the morgue. He has one arm. He's wearing a bright red shirt. Cooper and Harry in the same elevator during the pilot. Nothing suspicious. Like, this is a small town. Like, if anything, if somebody with one arm is just going to stand out. Like, that's just our term. Maybe it's just my bias, but I would recognize that.
Point out that he is on the ICU unit on both times.
Yes, and then he just vanishes. He just vanishes when Hawk's trying to follow him.
No, he doesn't vanish. He just goes to the stairwell, and Hawk decides not to follow him. That's not vanishing. That's bad police work.
Yeah.
Again, guys. I want to point out that we love this show. We just are going at it from a critical, cynical point of view here.
Yes, we love it. And I got to say, this next scene where they go into Gerard's hotel room, Mike, the one-armed man, Al Strobel hams this up, and I love it. I fucking love this. He's wearing just a towel. They burst in right when he's stepping out of the shower, and he's just terrified. Obviously, I'd be terrified too. And Cooper's just ramming him with questions like, "Who's Bob? Oh, Bob, yeah, my good friend. He's an animal doctor. Yeah, he's in the intensive care unit. Bad crash.
he's the best doctor. He's the best animal doctor there is."
It's just like, he's like, you had a tattoo on that arm, and he's like, what did it say? He's like, yeah, Mom.
He just starts bawling, which you pointed out to me a really good point about the mom, and why don't you state that?
It's a palindrome. Mm-hmm. I didn't pick this up until I watched this episode and thought about it, because this Twin Peaks plays with a lot with, like we've talked about, like dualism, black and white, back and forth. And they do palindromes with Bob. One of the things is little man says, "Wow, Bob, wow." I believe that's in Fire Walk with Me in the Lodge. And it's a palindrome, it's the same backward and forward. And so his mom, that's what Mike had on his arm, was a palindrome.
Yes, absolutely. And I thought that was a wonderful point. Like, wow, that actually is a really good connection to that. I think that was clever in that regards. So before they go in there, though, let's talk about how bad Andy is. Before they go in there, they're standing outside. Andy drops his fucking gun, and it goes off. And meanwhile, you got Ben Horn and Catherine, who have been doing the worst deal in history.
Yes.
Doing these things, and they
Chelsea's there too. Chelsea's taking
yeah,
pictures.
Rosie's there, and they do all these things, and the gun drops. Now, would you not? I would come out. I'd be like, oh my god, the cops are all here. They know what we're doing. The Stop Ghostwood flyers are out. Everyone knows what we're doing. The guns up. We've been plotting this thing. I'm out. Okay, guys, come arrest us. Come here, hands up, arrest us.
Yeah, or maybe second guess, maybe meeting up. Just just lay off this. There's an FBI investigation going on in your town. Ghostwood can wait. It's a bad business proposition anyway. You guys are trying to sell land that isn't yours. God, it's such a bad plot.
It is a really bad plot. But they just go about their business like, oh, no, they're not here for us. Like it's normal in this town.
Yeah, the only person who's generally frightened and reacts like a normal person is Mike, and he's a lodge entity. He's he's part of the lodge. We don't know. We never see him in the White Lodge. We only see him really in the Black Lodge. I'm not even sure if the one lodge we see in the Return where the fireman is the White Lodge. It could be, could not be. We do see it in season 2, which is odd with Briggs, but we'll get to that when we do.
We'll get to that when we do, because I have a different theory than you.
But Mike is, at least he's an ally. He's trying to stop. So he's part of the Black Lodge, but I think he's trying to. It's like maybe a redemption story here for that guy.
That's what I think. So I think he's something different at this point than a full-on Black Lodge entity, and I think the entities know it. And also, Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me does some weird shit with him too. It doesn't make sense, but anyways.
Well, he does get that great scene where he just pulls up on Leland and starts screaming at him.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah,
I love it. And he's like, it looks like he's flipping the bird at him because he has the Owl Cave ring on. It's just fucking, it's bonkers.
I have so much, because I feel like that's a retcon in of itself. Like it really undoes some of the things that were done here. Because we'll get to that. So yeah, I have some questions that I'm hoping you can actually fill me in on when we get to that point. So the other thing I love about this is Andy's like, he's the shoe salesman, and he's like, you only got right shoes, and like he's like, yeah, these are my test shoes, these are my demo shoes. It can order to you in 2 days. They can be shipped to you. What is he, fucking Amazon? And but he also brings up a point. He's like, I used to sell pharmaceuticals, which is a big point, which is actually a clue. I used to sell pharmaceuticals, but this is it was a good job, but this is what I do now.
Yeah, it's a back, like kind of like a backdoor clue. You don't know this is a clue until you've seen the first episode of season 2, where this clue is brought to fruition with the giant with chemicals he points.
Yep. And the other thing I want to say is I want to see that. I want David Lynch to do a show about the one-armed man being a pharmaceutical and shoe rep. I want to see this because I think I would love to see the duality when he switches between Mike and the arm, or Mike and Mike, like when the duality of that, and just see him. Like, could you imagine him like being at a shoe rep and fucking losing it and turning into the fucking entity? Holy God, it'd be fucking amazing. I would love that show.
Imagine he's selling you shoes and he starts. I see you, Bob. Like, oh my God, I just want a new pair of Nikes, man.
Right?
You're freaking me out. But yeah, so they don't get much out of Mike, but he's established now. They know he's there. They just, it's hard you can't bring him in because this is all based off visions and dreams. That does not fall into the rule of law. We're a nation of laws. So
no.
You can't hold somebody off of it, no matter how good your intuition is. He hasn't done anything wrong. It's just Cooper saw him in a dream. Well, he did see him at the in the pilot, so that a lot of this could be explained away if they tried to do anything. So they kind of just let him go because they're not really getting anything out of him.
Absolutely. Yeah, they have to let him go. So then we find more about Hank, and the big thing that happens here is that Norma and Hank have to they're now that he's out of prison, her and Ed have to stop seeing each other. And that really bothers her. And it makes things kind of weird between Ed and Norma, which is E-plot, really. But then we cut to Shelley Johnson with Bobby, and we learn about the gun fetish.
Yeah, and she also, you pointed out, she's wearing a teddy to work under her work uniform.
She's wearing a black teddy. Black teddy. And it's glaring. Like, how do you be a waitress and wear that? That's some dedication to the teddy market right there. I mean, and she's got the gun and she's playing with her breasts. Well, she's got it and she's turning Bobby on. They're talking about how Bobby's going to take care of her, and she gives him the shirt and he's going to take care of him. And he comes up with the dumbest fucking plot ever, which is,
yeah, he's gonna again, he's gonna cross over into Canada and plant the bloody shirt at Jacques Renault's place, right. Which I don't know, just leave it at Leo's house and call the cops. Actually, just be there and just say, "Hey, Shelley, call 911. You found a bloody shirt."
Right. But instead, he goes to do this. Now, the one thing I will say that does kind of make sense is because they haven't talked about a while, but he does owe $10,000 to Bobby. I mean, to Leo, and I'm assuming he knows that he works with the Renaults on their drug deals. I'm assuming Bobby does because it's not really clear how Bobby would even know about Jacques, other than he's got to have an idea. So, I mean, I kind of get that, but at the same time, it's a terrible idea. It's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
And he does it at the worst time. So,
yeah. So we kind of Cooper and Harry and all, they're looking at Albert found bird scratches on Laura, and they do a deep dive at a veterinarian clinic where they're looking up for birds. They find out Jacques has a bird that was seen there, and based on like the scratches on Laura's body, there's a good chance that Waldo was the bird. So they go to Jacques to, like, he has this is circumstantial evidence, and it's enough to get him at least to be questioned. I don't think they could arrest him at this point since he's a Canadian citizen. They'd have to, it's international, you're crossing borders with this, so you kind of have to tread a little carefully. But yeah, how do they just break into a house in Canadian soil, Paul?
Again, this is... There's so many international laws that are being broken here. And the crazy thing is that this comes up later and they get nailed for that particular incident, but not this particular incident. And
Cooper, he's put on hiatus at the FBI in season 2 because of like the shenanigans with the borders and all that.
Right. And the other thing I want to jump back just a little bit was the veterinarian, which we didn't talk about, was the llama was my favorite. Why does this guy have a llama? Just weird to be weird. I think you mentioned it. They wanted to be a Lynchian, but they find the twine as well, and so that's how they were able to combat everything. Was the twine that they believe that it's going to be the same twine that Laura, which it is. But yeah, so then Hawk so Bobby's there. He sneaks out the window, and again, you're showing up to this guy's house. You don't know if he's there or not. So wouldn't you cover all entrances and exits in case the guy's fucking there? But no, they don't. So Bobby escapes out the fire and outruns Hawk. But they have the shirt as evidence. There's just so much wrong with the scene when you really look at it critically.
But the shirt does, because Leo has Shelly's Stitch's initials in all his clothes. Obviously she's losing his favorite shirts all the time, so he's just if you see somebody wearing it, you can just pop the collar and find out if they stole it from him or not.
Right? Yeah. She stitches names. Oh my god! What a fucking asshole!
Well, she's losing his shirts. He brought it up. This is the second favorite shirt of mine.
Second favorite shirt. So and again, is he worried he's going to lose them at the pilot when he's taking a shower trucking? I mean, is he just going to show up one day because he's going to be out there meeting with the other truckers or a lot lizard, and he's going to be like, "Hey, that's my shirt. It says Leo in it," because Leo's fucking lot lizards left and right.
Oh yeah, He's got all sorts of VD going on.
But this all kind of leads in this red herring that Leo was the killer. And when you take away the fact that we know where it's going as an audience, you're kind of going, okay, this is great. Yeah, it's all, everything's pointing Leo. Everything's pointing Leo. They're going to get Leo for the murder. They're going to get Leo for the murder. Little did they know what was coming.
Yeah. And then, they think it's Jock who ran out the window. Jock's I'm going to be blunt. He's a fat guy.
He's a fat fuck. He's an Ernest Borgnine fuck. He is.
So it's not like, Grant, like the guy who plays Jacques, there's a great, he's in Seinfeld. He plays the cable guy who chases Kramer down. So I guess he can run. I'm just not buying it here that he can outrun Hawk, who's like peak physical form. Jesus.
Right. And then so that's he gets away. So that's then the show ends with James meeting Maddie and instantly falling in love, which again, I don't like this take on it, because this is where the writing of James being poor comes in, because between he and Donna, like especially in Fire Walk with Me, Donna is supposed to be this element of light in Donna's life, and so is James. Like, James, he was just too sweet and all these things, and he was this great character, and then they're going to do this weird ass love triangle and really kind of shit on what the character James was. I just didn't like it. I don't know your thoughts on it, Joe.
No, yeah, they did. I even will say I like the Donna in Fire Walk with Me better than Laura Flynn Boyle. I'm not. I know I'm in a minority with that with a lot of Twin Peaks fan, but I think she's better for that character. Considering Donna she gets poorly written too. We'll talk about it because she ends up. It's like she becomes like a film noir, like jaded lover thing going on. And it's like, these characters are not treated well
not at all,
especially in season 2 here. It's a bunch of nonsense at this point. Like, I just don't, whatever. But one thing I do want to bring up, and this is something the FBI should have been looking into, is so Audrey wants to work for the family, and she wants to work at the perfume counter. This is where Ben Horn, outside of all his bad business decisions, he also trades in trafficking of high school girls. These girls work at the perfume counter, and they get recruited to be prostitutes at One-Eyed Jack's. They're typically minor. They're high school girls, so they're not really legal age. It's seedy, but Audrey's figured this out. Audrey's like one of the few characters I think remains well written through even when the lulls of season 2. She's still one of the few characters they kept well written, probably because Sherilyn Fenn was probably, like, after Cooper, she's probably the most popular character in the show, so they're not gonna crap over her too much.
Yeah, absolutely. And you bring up a valid point there with the whole perfume counter. I mean, all roads kind of lead this perfume counter. And again, Audrey, this high school student, figures it out, and no one else does. That's really bizarre to me. Yes. The other thing we didn't talk about earlier that I want to talk to is The gun range scene where they're down because of what's his nuts because of Andy dropping the gun, they make him do gun training.
Yeah.
That was in this episode, right?
Yeah, they're at the gun range. We do get they get sprinkled out of what will become. This was in the plans too long with Frost and Lynch. I know the character isn't your favorite. I like him, but they leave. This starts the seeds of Wyndham Earl in this episode.
Yes,
Well,
they do.
Cooper's talking about how he once knew a woman who taught him how to love and all that. This is and they'll kind of like I forgot how early they kind of start making these references to what would become Cooper's great nemesis in the FBI in Wyndham Earl. But yeah, they referenced this early. That character was going to happen no matter if the reveal was going to happen or not. He was in the making anyway.
He was. I know, and they do hint at this, and you know, that's we'll talk about Wyndham Earl when we get there. But yeah, that is the beginnings of the Wyndham Earl, and then it ends with the phone call that we talked about, where the fucking crazy gross Hank is looking a fucking domino and calling Josie as soon as she gets the letter.
One more thing.
Yes.
The owl.
Oh, the owl. Yes. Go ahead, Joe.
The owl sees James and Donna trying to find the locket or the necklace. Owls play a huge thing. They kind of like, I see them as conduits for like the lodges. Like that's how the lodges see things. They're also predatory creatures and night creatures, which is also like why Bob is so aligned with the owls. Like that's how I think Bob sees things and gets his information. There's even like in the next season where an owl's face is superimposed over his. Like it's not really subtle that these owls are part of the darkness and the mysteries of the woods.
Yes, and I do think this is some more indicative, not just Bob's power, but of the lodges, of the lodge beings. I do think that's where they're getting a lot of their things from, because it is apparent that even beings of both the light and the dark lodges are able to manifest in people and other things. So yeah, I think that's indicative. I don't think that a particular owl was Bob, but I do think it was a.
Yeah, we know where Bob is. We know where Bob is right now. When after the reveal, after a certain person leaves the mortal coil of Twin Peaks, Bob does inhabit an owl. Though it's kind of blatant that's how he gets around. He needs a host. It seems like he's like a parasite of some sort, a spiritual parasite. And the owls are also brought up in Secret History. People are talking about like ancient of like the Native Americans talking about walking, talking owls.
Yes, absolutely. So I do think that's, and it's creepy and absolutely, and we'll talk about something else there that I think we talk about in another episode, about the lights, Yes, and the traffic lights, and we'll get to that. But overall, in these two episodes, I mean, I really feel like, again, looking at them just as these two episodes for this podcast, there is a really strong pulls as to why season 2 was as bad as it was without the main plot.
Yeah, this is the only reason we, this stuff, it's not like we put up with it. It is enjoyable when you're just kind of watching it for the experience. But when there's no central mystery and they rely on this stuff, it's not fun. This stuff just falls flat because this stuff is, you need the backbone to prop everything up, and when you lose the backbone and you're just with this, it's basically just like it's weird randomness. It's like it's basically like you take the mystery out of Twin Peaks and you pretty much just have like the nonsense of Tommy Wiseau's The Room. Like people are just doing things you have no reason why.
I mean, it's quirky, it's weird, but again, it worked with what the show was, and it works well as a parody of what a soap opera was, which is what they were trying to do.
Yeah, and to the point they even mimic the biggest, you know, it's maybe even thumb their nose a bit at like the Who Shot JR at the end of this season.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely they do. Absolutely they do. So yeah, I mean, not that they're bad episodes. It's just in my mind, I like it when there's more of the A plot, the Cooper, the investigation going on. But again, I feel like this was kind of that lull because there never was an intention to reveal it, so they started to fill these other things in, and yeah, it's. I mean, they're not the strongest of this first season, but they are nowhere near the doldrums of what was season 2. I think you agree with me on that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, season 2 is like I think we're just gonna get this. Let you all know there's gonna be like a 7 episode streak, 7 or 8 episodes, I believe, after when that really loses its power or it's you know we're just gonna do all those in one fell swoop because I don't want to be doing 2 episodes of those a week every other week. It's just I'm not interested in talking about Evelyn and James and like the weird and I just don't care. There's no mystery. They take too long to get an antagonist and Wyndham Earl going. It's just yeah, we're gonna do those all on one pod.
Yeah, absolutely we will. So yeah, I think that really wraps this one up. Now again, going in the next one, I'm excited because I know what's coming up in the next 2 episodes, and things pick up again on the A plot. But yeah, this is just way too much Ben and Catherine for me.
Yeah, I'm excited for the next episodes too because I'm really excited to talk about that mustache and wig that Big Ed wears.
Oh my God, yes.
I love it. It's so unnecessary, but it's to me, it's great. We'll get to it, but I am so excited.
I am too. I would love it. I would love it. Talk about oh my God, I wasn't even thinking about that. Yeah, the dentist. Jesus Christ. Yeah. So, other than that, Joe, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, these were heavy on C and D plots, but they're enjoyable still. We kind of take the piss out of it, but that's kind of like what we're doing. We praise the show when it's doing it well. I mean, obviously, we gush over Lynch and Frost's strong points, but we're going to point out that some of this stuff makes absolutely no sense. We're not purists. We're going to point out the warts and all. And these 2 episodes certainly started showing some of the warts in the show.
Yes, yeah, and that's kind of it. I mean, we love the show, but and I didn't realize I was going to be this harsh going. But when you break it down into like 2 episode chunks, you really do start to see the warts more than you do the whole story. I mean, this was never how it should have been intended to be.
Yeah, and it's funny because I don't remember it kind of like being kind of annoyed by this when I originally watched it because we had to wait every other week for an episode. So I think streaming really made the show is one of the reasons this show came back is streaming made it so you can go it's a very good show, I think, to binge, but also like not binge to an extent. So you got to kind of take it all in. I made the mistake when The Return came out. They Showtime dropped the first 4 episodes, and I spent 4 hours watching that, trying to take it all in, and I just couldn't.
Right. Yeah. I what I did when I was watching the Return was I was watching it week to week, and I do think I need to just sit down. I mean, I know it's 18 hours, but there is a break point, and you know exactly the episode I'm talking about, where I feel like that's like the thing between part 1 and part 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like, it's not, I don't want to call it the intermission episode because it probably is yours and mine favorite episode, but it's a wonderful break point if you're going to fucking binge that show like I think it needs to be done.
Yes, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I would love to see a cut. I don't know if we'll ever get it. I'll be honest with you. I bought that limited edition Z to A box set. I have not opened it. I don't want to open it. Like that's a treasure to me. Um, but I may at some point, if I can find something like it or another box set that does come out that's not so limited, with all of it together, because there's always Twin Peaks box sets that come out.
They're gonna keep farting these out. I got the complete mystery, the gold box, and the return. Yeah, I'm happy until I would love to see a 4K release. I know the box that you have has the pilot and part 8 of the return in 4K, which I would love to see, but I'm gonna wait until they put the whole thing out in 4K just because I can't justify buying another box from Twin
Right.
Peaks. You got my money, Frost and Lynch.
Right. Right. And the thing is that what I love to see though is like a marathon mode where they take out the musical interludes and just cut it into an actual full-on bingeable movie or a marathon.
Lynch won't do that. Just he doesn't. The cut you get is the cut you get. With him, he doesn't do director's cuts. I know there's a renegade cut of Fire Walk with Me with the missing pieces put in, and a lot of people want Lynch to try to do that. You will never get it. It's just the cut you got is the cut you got.
Right. Right.
And this goes back to his Dune experience, which we talk about it, cast that movie. So
yes. So this podcast will be up before the next Cast That Movie, but you were in our last Cast That Movie, Joe.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed chatting with you and Jode. It was a lot of fun. I had a blast doing it, especially with Voldemort happening right now. Like being able to talk to other human beings is a treat for me.
Yes. We loved having you on. I think we'd like to do that again. I know you're busy, so not all the time, but it was wonderful having you on. And yeah, we really dug in the Dune on that one. And it felt like during that part of it that it was just like this podcast. I think you're the one that made that comment, and it really did.
It became a mini episode of the
podcast. It did.
Poor Jode. He's just listening to us.
He's just us geek out on Dune, and he's just not into it at all. Poor him. He's just the patience of a saint.
Bless him, man. Bless that guy for putting up with that.
Absolutely. But yes, so I think you guys, if you like this one, you're definitely gonna love episode 5 of Cast That Movie, and because Joe will be in on that, so you definitely want to hear that. Joe, why don't you take us out?
Yeah. So that is it for this week. We'll be back in 2 weeks with episodes 5 and 6, 4 and 5, however 5 and 6, and we'll be getting into kind of more of the A plot, which I'm excited for. But yeah, until next time, just remember the owls are not what they seem, and wow, Bob, wow.